Head on. Today's episode and our final topic of today's episode is brought to us by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, in practicing every detail to get the best results, but no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier at Epicor. The all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices, from small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions. We'll equip you with the right tools to move forward. Think ahead and lead the way, because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. Jason, my cap guy, got back to me and said yes, as long as they end up
even.
Yeah, as long as they can be part of 3-team deals. So
well, then
more money.
Then you're saying
happen.
There's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance. All right, last topic, and we teased this a little earlier, so we got to get to it today. But at least the first time I've heard, maybe it's not the first time, but I hadn't seen it before.
No, I think it is first time.
Deion Sanders went on the Asante Samuel podcast, and they had a prolonged discussion. It's worth taking a listen to. He made a couple comments about the slide in the draft for Shedeur, how he felt. And this is just, I took 90 seconds from it that I thought kind of encapsulated kind of the whole conversation at once. This is Deion speaking out for the first time since Shedeur Sanders was drafted by the Browns.
I know there was a lot of rumors about the next level, and I can't see that. Yeah. I can't see the next level. And I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go. That's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. People don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
No idea, man. You have no idea. We've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves. Yeah. And you're not going to catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not. When you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and went up, leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're going to tell me
every situation.
You're going to tell me he had on headphones.
So you a dog, your kid's a dog, and dogs going to always rise to the top. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. You know what I mean?
It did hurt. The Bible says God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So it was some foolish stuff that went on, but you know what? That gave them something that they needed.
So that was Deion. It's a snippet. It's a much longer conversation if you want to listen to the whole thing. He was with the Asante Samuel podcast. But, what'd you make of Deion's first comments about Shedeur being drafted by the Cleveland Browns?
Man, he sound like a father.
Yep.
Like, they look. I don't have any children, but the 2 J's, they got children, and look, they coach him. They done been with him. Like you coach your son. You want your son to be everything he can be. You're proud of your son. You go to every practice. Every father is supposed to say that. Every father is supposed to be like, yo, I know how I raised my son. You know what I'm saying? I make sure that they got what they needed when they was growing up. And any father is going to be protective over his son. I think sometimes people forget. First of all, it's Deion, his prime. He going to speak candidly. He's been doing that his whole life. He showed up to the combine in jewelry. He going to do that. And sometimes, this is why sometimes in journalism, you got the media and people use anonymous stuff. It's hard when people say things, but there's no name to it. And sometimes sometimes it gets overblown and it gets legs and stuff like that. And you just got to realize that everybody, if they espouse to be a certain way or they know who they are, if somebody is attacking your kid's character, I mean, Stephen A. Smith and LeBron found out the hard way. When people are protective about their children, and I get the fact that he's still a coach, but he's still his dad. So for me, him in that role as his father, I can understand that he's saying, what it is and how he feels and how it hurt him. Because he did ask some questions. There's players that play with like Chris Carter was very he was very vocal about it. A lot of people was vocal about the slide and some of the things behind the scenes. So you got to look at it. That's some of his peers, some of his people. He may call friends that are saying that. Mm-hmm. So he's saying that hurt him a little bit, which is human nature. But I will say at the end, Hey, look, I'm happy he slid, selfishly, because you know why? I feel like they got a great quarterback. I feel like they got a guy in the 5th round that I thought they was going to get in the 2nd or 33. And from what I've seen right now, he's taking it in stride. And what I've seen is he's using that to show people that he's different from what the stuff is out there. So for me, as a Browns fan and as a person who wants a quarterback, and I think he could be a franchise quarterback, I'm excited for him. And I think for the most part, people have moved on and said, all right, well, 5th round, you're going to get an opportunity to show everybody what you're really about coming up in this fall. So, I just thought it was a father talking about his son being disappointed.
Yeah, he didn't say anything I wouldn't say as a dad. And, I try and be unbiased and dead inside even with my own kids.
Right. I with my kid, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
If anything, I was tamping down expectations to him.
I've done the same with AJ and with my older one, Alexander, when he was coming up through it, and with my daughter, Ava. Like, I try and be pretty realistic, but at the end of the day, I'm just a dad wanting the best for my kids.
That's it.
That's all Deion was in that. And so I don't blame him for anything that he said. I would have said the exact same thing. Doesn't mean it wasn't true. And that's where I think sometimes it's hard you don't necessarily want to hear it or see. I told you guys, I came back from the owners' meetings and said, there's a lot of stuff out there on Shedeur that I'm not going to say or write. I'm glad I didn't now. Can you imagine?
God. You would have been the poster boy for it.
Had Jason, I come back from
you wrote everything you heard.
I remember we were sitting here. He's like, yeah, I heard some stuff. I said, oh, he's like, I said,
but you wisely said no.
You gonna put your name to it? He said, it ain't gonna do no good.
There was no benefit.
There was no benefit.
There's no benefit to me being a columnist for The Athletic in Cleveland to come back and crap on this kid before he had the opportunity to, had I been in a different role, I might have wrote it. But in the role that I'm in, there's no reason for me to do that.
No.
And then you saw the Pelissaro thing come out after that, and people got all hot and bothered by that. And I told you guys, I'm like, okay, well, people want to yell and scream about why would you write that now, but then if you don't write it and then he falls the 5th round, and then you write it after. You say, why didn't you write that before?
Yeah, it was even worse. It's even worse then.
This is like sort of the ugly, messy side of this. And like, you don't want to be the reaper and be the bad guy. But at the same time, like, if this is the reality and this is what teams are telling you, in Tom's role is much different than mine. In Tom's role, he has an obligation to write it.
Yeah,
and
he's a newsmaker.
As much as it infuriated people, it turned out he was right because he fell to the 5th round, and there was a reason why. So he's just telling you that. Whether you like it or not, this is what the teams were saying.
And Jay, it's a club of 32. I've talked about this on the show before. If Jason Lloyd is hearing about it, you bet your ass that the Saints are hearing about it.
For sure.
The Cardinals are hearing about it.
Yeah.
The Browns are hearing about it. They all heard about it. Now, I look at that, and I look at it from two sets of lenses when I watch Deion. Yes, he's a dad. Quite frankly, the dad part of me would have been far more angry and stronger than Deion was. I thought, from a dad, his comments were fairly measured.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just some kid that happens to have my last name. This is a kid that's accomplished.
Yeah.
He's done great things. Like, you can look at it, the proof is in the pudding. 6 different offensive coordinators has gotten better every year. So I would have been much, much angrier as a father. But then there's this. If you put Deion to a blind taste test, and you said, Deion, I want to ask you about this corner or linebacker or whatever. He was taken in the 5th round. Without knowing who we're talking about, what do you make of him? He would probably say, well, then he's a 5th round talent. Like 32, at the club of 32 all said no, 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 no. And then finally, one of the club of 32, at the 5th time around said, okay. And you saw the reactions. Yeah. Stefanski and Andrew Barry were blinking. This was not my idea. Like they weren't screaming and doing backflips about this. So you can make of that what you will. But I think Deion's smart enough, the player, the coach, to tell you that you are what you are. You are what the league tells you are for now. The thing I wish he would have emphasized is this. We'll see.
Yeah, it doesn't matter now.
None of it matters.
He's in the league.
None of it matters. It doesn't matter where he was taken. None of it matters. And Deion knows that as well as anybody.
Yeah, I mean,
we all have labels in life, and he will be labeled as a 5th-round pick.
The bad thing is he's gone to a graveyard of quarterbacks. The good thing is he should have an opportunity to play.
Well, that might be the good thing too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know, it's a bad thing. He's a graveyard for quarterbacks, but it might be a good thing because their track record is nobody else is going to strike dirt, pay dirt. So I think I like what Deion said. I totally empathize with him as a father. I got to tell you, when I first started seeing those clips of the draft party, my first question was, why did they let it get to that size? You know, you hear numbers about how much he spent on that draft party. Okay, like I would have low-keyed this thing. But that's me. But look, Deion doesn't low-key anything.
No.
But right now, what I think the right thing for Deion to say was like, we're going to see.
Yeah.
We will find out.
He's
we will.
He's in a better situation now than he would have been going to Dallas to be Dak's backup.
And never have a chance to see the field.
He's going to get a shot. He got a shot to make it a great story.
And that's the key.
He got a
Deion,
shot.
we will see. And if the kid can play, 31 teams were wrong.
Yeah.
5 times?
32 teams were wrong.
No, 31 teams were wrong 5 times.
just
The Browns
finally
were only
relented.
wrong 4 times.
Hey,